hello everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is leg 4 of the Blue Spruce Route. Historic route from North America across the North Atlantic into England and then eventually across into France on the D-Day landings. So we're going to get airborne and then we'll talk a little bit more about what we've got going here, not only today but just in general with this project. So again, thanks for stopping by. Hope you're having a fun flight somewhere in the VATSIM world tonight. There's some craziness going on down in Miami, I understand. We're going to have a little bit of our own version of craziness here, I think, off of the southern part of Iceland. Alright, see if we can get her lined up. We're not going to be perfect. Wind right now 110 at 5. Otherwise clear conditions. We have flaps 1/4. Let's check everything else here. We'll set our trim to 0.2. Cow flaps, I can't do that manually, so I automatically put them to trail. Landing lights are going to come on. Fuel pumps will come on. And we'll lock the tail wheel. And I think we are ready to go. Up and away. Our destination today, Prestwick, England. We're excited about that. Let's see if we can get this thing airborne. Absolutely beautiful Orbix, Iceland. It's just a demo. It's free to try. Why wouldn't you? Incredible scenery around here. Helps out an awful lot on these long trips. Alright, hey, welcome. Once again, if you've been here before, you know what we're doing. Know what the Blue Spruce Route is all about. Let me get myself set up here so I can talk and maybe get a couple shots outside. We're VFR today, as we have been for the 3 oceanic portions. Oh boy, what's going on here? Yeah, something's not right. Oh, my V-speed, what in the world? Holy cow. I think I put my altitude where my V-speed is supposed to go. And we don't want to stall here 10 miles from the airport. That wouldn't be good. Alright, let's get the speed going back up here. Sometimes this thing trims out kind of funny. I may need to level it out and get our airspeed back up. Yeah, that kind of stuff will get you. You have to pay attention. I don't have a lot of hours in this bird, but I am getting a little bit more familiar with things. This is obviously a replication of a semi-modern autopilot. They did have a little bit of an autopilot in this particular aircraft, and it was mainly kind of around these instruments right here. Okay, we're climbing again. We've got good speed. Go ahead, bring our throttle and our propeller lever back. Take a peek outside and we'll talk once again about what it is we're doing. So, as you may know, this June 6th actually is the 75th anniversary of the D-Day operation, and of course many of the troops were there via the C-47, and so there are various organizations that are actually flying a simulated crossing, I guess, on the 5th of June. They're actually going to be flying from Duxford, England to Carpacay, France, and again, just to commemorate the 75th anniversary of that. So the way that these planes are getting there, obviously most of them World War II era planes can't fly, in one long haul. They have to make it into several shorter stops. After takeoff checklist, we'll turn the landing lights off, we'll turn the fuel pumps off, flaps are up, gears stowed. So anyway, what they do is they fly these shorter legs, and so they'll fly somewhere into Canada, kind of the east coast of Canada. They'll jump over to Greenland. From Greenland they'll hop over to Iceland, and then Iceland down to Scotland, and then from Scotland usually over to the southern part of England, and then that's where they went across the English Channel. So we have done 3 of the legs so far. We have our initial leg actually was Oxford, Connecticut to Goose Bay, Canada. That was back on the 20th of April. On the 27th, the following Saturday, we flew from Goose Bay to Narsarsuaq, Greenland, and kind of have an interesting Orbix story about Narsarsuaq. The following Saturday, which would have been last Saturday, we flew from Narsarsuaq, Greenland to Reykjavik, Iceland, and that's where we are departing from here today. And our goal, again, is to kind of make the last of our transatlantic crossings, our open oceanic crossings, and end up in Prestwick, England, here in about 4.5 hours, a little over 700 miles. And of course, C-47, not exactly known for its speed, will be somewhere between 140, probably between 120 and 160 miles per hour today, once we get up to cruise. Our cruise is hopefully going to be 5,500. We need that to be safe of the terrain here as we head down the coast of Iceland. I can give you a quick peek here at what our flight plan looks like. Sorry about that little Microsoft pop-up. We are VFR from Reykjavik. We're going to just kind of take it down the southern coastline here, and as the coast starts to chase its way a little bit more north and east, we're just going to stay fairly well on the same heading. We're right now roughly a 141 heading, and we'll actually just go direct to Prestwick from somewhere around this area here. That should give us a good 3.5 hours or so, maybe 3 depending on the tailwind, and then we'll be over in the northern part of Scotland, and really a scenic approach. I think you're going to like this one. I mean, they've all been scenic, honestly. The Greenland approach, of course, just magnificent. The I think I've been calling it Project Greenland. I think it's officially the Greenland X project, or Project X Greenland. I was corrected the other day on one of the support forums, but that's a really nice scenery pack, and they're doing some amazing work around the entire area of Greenland. There's several airports and just big swaths of mesh that they're creating, and it's really nice. It's been picked up, some of it has been picked up by Orbix, which is really cool as well. The flight, of course, into Reykjavik was equally as nice, mainly because it was that's a demo for the entire Iceland area. I don't know if I haven't done anything but Reykjavik, but Reykjavik, the airport itself that you see there, that's not a payware airport. I have Orbix Global Mesh, and I have the Iceland demo, and that airport looks as good as as many payware airports. So I'm excited to fly more into both Greenland and Iceland and see what some of these other airports look like. But not not a lot of population up here, though. I mean, you see some towns here and there, and airports here and there. We actually are going to be flying past one on an island here that we might be able to see. That could be the island out there. Looks fairly interesting, but yeah, just cool country, and we'll talk, like I say, a little bit more about Greenland here in just a bit. But just want to welcome you if you're stopping in. I've got a couple guys. Curtis has stopped by to say, hey, it's only crazy in Atlanta. Curtis, I've been looking, man. It looks insane in Miami, and if it's not right now, it's going to be, because there is a huge string that's been coming from the north, from Atlanta, and then of course from Houston as well. And they've got some VATSIM event. It's cool. I think you have time to check it out. It's getting kind of late, but anyway, if you make it into Miami within the time period, you get to be sort of a part of a lottery, and you can win like some Amazon gift cards or some Zwacky design airports. Really cool stuff. So Admiral Nibbits 04, good day. Hey, thanks for joining us. I hope you're a current or former military guy, because a huge part of why we're doing this is in honor of your service, and to just recognize some of the phenomenal things that were done in the World War II era in particular, but to just recognize all military vets, their families, current people serving, just our little way of saying thank you. And then Fabio, he's asking, is this an add-on? No, the aircraft itself, let me hop back outside and show you. This is a freeware C-47. This is Manfred Jahn and Alex Visser are the guys that put this together. I believe I think I have a link to the most current. There's 2 or 3 versions of it floating around, but the one that they did here a couple of years ago, it has a few tweaks, and especially a sound pack that just has made this plane unbelievable. And you'd never guess that it's free. And then of course the AvSim community has stepped up in a huge way, and there's a million liveries. And we chose Whiskey 7 Bravo, but there are a few others that actually flew. There's we have the Hey Buddy livery, which is one of the lead planes from the Canadian Air Force, and then there's That's All Brother, which depending on who you talk to, was actually the first its claim to fame is it was the first, the lead C-47. We decided not to go with That's All Brother just because, um, you know, we just felt like that plane has had its story told a million times. But yeah, you can pick that up. There's also AeroWorks if you're an X-plane person. So I'm a P3D guy, but AeroWorks is, they make the X-plane version of this, and it's the same, basically the same aircraft. So it has a few different things that work. That some of the things that you see, are like this part of the panel for me is inoperable, but the X-plane one, that stuff works. But there's some things down here that work for me that don't work in the X-plane version. So anyway, yeah, check it out, Fabio, and if you're free on Saturday, right around, we're a little early tonight, but just about this time every Saturday we fly a leg. Now, I will say this: next Saturday we're taking the Saturday off. I'll actually be out of town with some family stuff, but the following Saturday we'll be flying from Prestwick down to Duxford, and then our next flight, that'll be our last Saturday flight, and then the flight after that will be on the 5th of June. That's a Wednesday, and we'll be flying that same leg that all these other guys in real life will be flying, and to commemorate the D-Day landings, that we'll be flying from Dutchford to Caincarpacay, and that'll be awesome. And I would love to have people join me. I mean, I've said all along it'd be cool to have as many people in the virtual flight as the real flight. I think they're expecting around 30 guys, 30 planes, I should say, 30 C-47s. I think there'll be more than that over there, but 30 C-47s, and so that'd be cool if we could get 30 of these Manfred Johns flying over there too. That'd be pretty awesome to see. But yeah, tell your friends and feel free to join us. 0200 Zulu, not next Saturday, but the following Saturday, and then for sure on June the 5th at 0200 Zulu. All right, I'm going to be quiet for just a little bit, let you enjoy the sights and sounds, and we'll be back with a few more bits of information, and then it'll be time to head out over the ocean. Sit back and enjoy. Just thought something real quick here. We are at cruise altitude, so I need to get myself back to cruise power at 2300 RPM, 33-ish to 35-ish manifold pressure, and auto lean on the mixture, and everything here looking pretty good. All my temperatures, pressures, oil pressure, yeah, those all look good. I need to close the one of the weird things about about this particular version. This is one of the things that doesn't quite work. So it's in trail right now. I can't put it to trail. Like if I just mess with it, it doesn't quite go to, well, now of course now it's lying to me. Can't quite get it to where trail is just before, you know, it's just before close. I can't do that, so I have to actually click out of it up here. And you can control every part of your aircraft with this this autopilot. But I'm going to close the cowl flaps, and we are getting close to where we're going to start to just go direct down to Prestwick. So for those of you that have maybe tuned into some of these streams, we've had quite a bit of discussion about navigation, and I've really tried to sort of bridge the gap between World War II era navigation and what these guys are currently flying with. I want to be as authentic as I can, but at the same time, I'm not going to shy away from modern avionics, just because that's a part of the reality that the guys that have restored these C-47s are going to have to deal with. And so throughout the 3 weeks that, well, this is the 4th week, but basically throughout the month that I've been preparing and flying these particular legs, I've been trying to get in touch with different people that know more about this than I do. I've been reaching out to people that are kind of the history buffs that have studied this type of thing, and the navigation that was used historically. And then I've also reached out to some guys that they're going to be flying in one of the groups actually took flight today and started their leg today. So it's been fun to talk to those guys, because they've really given me a sense of how it used to be done and all the tools that they've used. And I'm not going to go back into all those things. You can check back to some of the other videos and see the links to the different World War II era types of navigation that they used, the tools and techniques, but also what they would do and the one question that I wasn't able to get answered, and understandably so, was what are the flight plans going to look like for these guys that are flying across the open ocean, because they have to have a way to communicate where they're at, just from a safety standpoint. But they're obviously not going to be up there in those high altitude oceanic jetways either. So what does that look like exactly? And I finally was able to get a hold of somebody actually this week, and it was not a guy that I had on my radar. Actually, it was kind of a funny story. I work as a principal in my day job, and I was hiring a staff member, and one of the references for the staff member actually is an ex-Navy guy and an ex-Navy pilot. And so I obviously I did the reference check on this potential staff member, but I think we spent more time talking about avionics and planes than we did the actual person. But it was just phenomenal to hear from a guy that had experience, and his job, he was an aviator. I'm sorry, he was a navigator, and so he flew in several of these World War II era aircraft, and he was able to give me quite a few details that really made me feel better about what we're trying to do on this flight. And so as one of the things I really wrestled with, by the way, I think there's an airport out there on that island. The map is showing me, you can kind of see it. Maybe one of these days I'll come back to it. But one of the things I really wrestled with was, do you use the GPS, the modern avionics, and part of me says, yeah, they're gonna have it. You might as well use it. But then there was another part of me that basically said, well, yeah, the World War II guys didn't really have that. Yeah, see on the map there's a little airport. The World War II guys didn't have it, so maybe you should try to navigate without it. Maybe you should see if you can use a sextant, or if you can use dead reckoning and drift calculations and things like that. Well, it didn't take me long to realize that I wasn't going to be able to replicate the World War II era navigation. I mean, those guys, they went to school specifically for that, and I mean, it was months, up to 3 months of training just to learn how to navigate. And as much as I'd love to gain that level of knowledge, I just don't have that time. So I reluctantly, after I got to Goose Bay, I could kind of VOR to VOR navigate, and felt like I was at least being a little bit old school and a little bit more I don't know what you would call it, but just a little bit more kind of cognizant of the aircraft era and the navigational tools and instruments. But what I finally just realized is you're going to have to, over the open ocean here, you're just going to have to fly VFR direct. I mean, that's what makes the most sense. If I had to make my best guess, because I wasn't hearing back from any of the actual pilots, my best guess is that they would just they would get to the edge of whatever landmass they were on, in this case Iceland, and then they would they'd probably have ForeFlight on their laptop strapped to their leg, and they would plug in direct to Prestwick, and off they go. So I thought at the time, because we talked a lot about this when we were heading out of Goose Bay, I thought at the time that it was a little bit of a cop-out, and I didn't feel great about it, but I didn't want to jeopardize the intent of the series, which is, again, to honor those veterans and pay tribute and do just a little simulated flight to connect a little bit with those World War II guys, which one of them is my grandfather. He was a flight mechanic for the Navy, and so I wanted to just have a way to connect with him. He's been gone for a long time, but I just felt like this would be kind of a cool way to pay tribute to him as well. But didn't feel good about the GPS. Well, the guy I just talked to here this week, his name's John, and I won't share his last name just yet because I didn't tell him that I was going to be mentioning him on the stream. So maybe I hope to be able to visit with him some more, because he was a wealth of information. But what he told me essentially is, yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly what the guys that are flying with the DAX over Normandy, or there's a PMDG group that has a C-47 that they're flying over, or there's an Everett-based group that just left today, and I shared a link or I will share a link, I should say. I'm streaming right now, but when I get done editing, I'll share that link. And I'm sure there's more groups that are heading that way, but they're going to be using two things. They're going to be using low-level airways, and they're going to be using VFR, and it's all going to tie into some modern type of GPS. And so what he said is, yeah, you're right on the money to do that, because that's exactly what those guys would be doing today. So that makes me feel a little bit better about things, and yeah, so that's why I don't feel so bad about popping the GPS up today, and that's we're heading direct to right now. We're going to be out over the open ocean here, VFR 5,500, unless the ceiling gets a little too low, and we may have to make an adjustment after that. But But yeah, that's kind of the story here as we head out off the coast of Iceland. So sit back. Thanks, Curtis, Admiral Nimitz, Fabio, for checking in on the chat. If you've got something you'd like to add on the YouTube chat, I'll be over there a little bit as well. But at this point in time, it's really just about kind of crossing the blue. And so what I do, if you haven't seen one of these videos yet, it's when I'm done, I just do kind of the highlights. I do the departure, I do the arrival, but I like to fly the whole route just so that people know I'm not speeding the sim up to 16 times and just getting there in like 20 minutes. I'm actually flying these things. So that's going to be what's happening here in the next 3 hours or so. There won't be really any chat going on, any of the commentary. I'll go ahead and mute my mic. I'm going to be watching the Rockies. I'm going to be watching probably some NBA playoffs. I'm going to be peeking in on the craziness of Miami. But we will visit some more with you guys when we get closer to the northern coast of Scotland. So again, sit back, relax. Many blessings to you and your family. I hope all is well in your world, and we'll talk to you probably it was probably 0500, I would say. And so yeah, we will see you then. But feel free to pop a question over, because I'll be on the chat here for the next 3 hours as well. Just making some adjustments here. We ran into the same type of problem with our GPS as we did when we flew into Reykjavik. Just ended up drifting a little bit north of course, and yeah, we're getting there. I mean, we're still an hour or so, hour 17 out, so we can make some small adjustments and get back on course. But I thought we would just start doing that now. A little bit easier to fix it when you're further away. So welcome back. How's your Saturday been? How was Miami? Those guys, they're still on. I mean, it's like 2 full hours, I think, past the event, and they're finishing it up. There's still 27 flights coming in, and so man, hats off to those guys down there. What a great job. Hope it was a fun one down there for you guys, and yeah, let me know if anyone still has any energy left and you stayed up and watched this flight. And yeah, I'm just curious to see. I'm sure we'll find out. There'll be a lot of videos, I'm sure, posted tomorrow about that. But for us, yeah, we're navigating our way into Prestwick. We've been using the GPS a little bit. We've been talking a little bit about navigation. We've been mixing the old with the new, basically, and as we approach the coast of Scotland, before we start to get too busy, I thought I would share just a couple other stories with you that I learned this week. And again, courtesy of our new contact. Always good to have folks that know what they're doing and have experience with this type of stuff. But like I said, I met a gentleman who I believe he's retired Navy. He was an aviator in the Navy. His name is John. He flew the P3s, and he mentioned, he confirmed a lot of what we were trying to do with our navigation. I say our. I don't know why I act like we've got a team here. He mentions what I've been trying to do and says that I'm on the right track. But he also talked a little bit, because when he served, they still employed a lot of the World War II era navigation, and he mentioned something that I thought was very interesting, and I had studied this a little bit when I researched Amelia Earhart, because she was also somebody back kind of in that era, and did a lot of oceanic work, obviously, infamously, as it were. But one of the things that she made use of were pathfinders, and a lot of her radio navigation and just ability to check in and do position reports and things like that were due to ships that were sent out ahead of her, and they would send a signal, and she would receive that signal, and it would help her with lines of position and things like that. And there's a link to a video about that I'm trying to remember if I shared that last time or if it'll be coming out this time. And it's called the GEE, or sometimes the OBOE. Yeah, actually, I'm going to share that. I've got a cool video on that, but it's all about using radio navigation to figure out lines of position, and it was the first attempts to figure out where people were before GPS. Hey, check it out. I see Scotland. Awesome. So anyway, we got to talking about pathfinders. John and I did, and he mentioned that a lot of times the DC-3s, as they were flying, they would use a pathfinder, and sometimes they'd use a bomber as their pathfinder, and then sometimes they would use a fighter plane as their pathfinder, and he mentioned an interesting story about a plane called the Glacier Girl, and it's a fighter that was a pathfinder, I believe, for a group of planes that were trying to go from Greenland to Iceland. They hit some bad weather and ended up turning back to Greenland and actually crashed. They all had to land on the ice, and anyway, it was a P-38 fighter plane, and I'm gonna share with you sort of a neat news story on that. And there's actually, if you look up Glacier Girl, you'll find there's some cool kind of side stories about that recovery effort and things like that. There's a series called Hunt for the Lost Squadron that's about the recovery of those aircraft. I can't remember how many there were, but anyway, the point he made to me is that it was an inexact science, and there were a lot of guys that didn't make it. Either they didn't make it there or they didn't make it back because of that. And he said, there were days when everything was clicking for me, and he was using a combination of everything, dead reckoning, sextant, drift, lines of position, whatever primitive radio, navigation equipment that they had at the time. He said if I was on my game and the weather cooperated, I could put my plane within a half a mile of my intended target. He said, but then there were other days when things maybe weren't as good, and I would feel good if I was within 100 miles of my target. So I just thought that was incredibly interesting, and it reaffirmed my decision to go ahead and use the GPS, and just to get a sense of where we're heading. As you can see, we're off. Our line of flight. We're left of course. We're not using. We're using the GPS, kind of similar to as you would dial in a VOR, but it's really not, because as we learned a while ago, VORs are not simulated in this aircraft outside of the United States. So that's kind of a bummer, but we can still head direct to. Now, as I say, we're VFR, and this is most definitely not VFR weather, so I'm going to have to descend a little bit here, and we're going to take her down about 1,000 feet. See if we can get out of this soup. We've run into the fog, active sky, telling me overcast. Yep, overcast 4,800, and some scattered clouds 3,800. Winds right now 279er at 6. We've had kind of a nice tailwind, and that's sped us up a little bit. I didn't think we would be hitting the coast for about another 20 minutes or so, but we had the coast in sight a little earlier, which that's okay. The shorter we can make these oceanic legs, I think the better. So Glacier Girl, yeah, check it out. There'll be a link. Other things to talk about. I'll just kind of finish up my visit with John. He talked about how he imagines that the D-Day operations, like the DAX over Normandy, that crew, they're probably going to be either using low altitude oceanic routes, or they're going to be just filing point to point routes, or just like we did, they're just going to VFR. They're going to ask for flight following, and probably just go direct to wherever it is they're going. And so that's what we did. We followed the coast, and then we just picked the shortest line between point A and point B, because we wanted to keep the oceanic part as short as possible. So yeah, we're in some weather here for sure. That Scotland fog is going to cause us some issues. 3,800 scattered is also the report here. So we're going to head down to, we're going to go ahead and take it down to 3,500, and I think that's going to keep us clear. As you can see, it's some hills and highlands and all that good stuff here. You're going to enjoy this approach. It's got its scenic beauty. Just about back on our navigation line, and this guy should snap back into place as well. But so anyway, a big thanks to John. He talked a lot about the low RAM, the low altitude oceanic routes, long range HF radios, and just really kind of cool, early navigational and communication tools. It was fun to listen to a guy that actually had been trained in that stuff. He also talked about, I don't know how we got on the subject, but one of the things he said that was really cool about the DC-3 is they developed something called the Fulton surface-to-air recovery system. And this is actually a like a tow line that they could extend off the back of the airplane, and because the C-47s so often would tow gliders, they could also then retrieve those gliders. They would fly low enough that these tow lines, kind of like a tail hook in a fighter jet that lands on an aircraft carrier, they had like a vertical extension line on the gliders that they would have up in the air, and the DC-3s would come by, or the C-47s, I guess they would come by, and they would actually be able to retrieve those gliders and pick them up and tow them off and take them back to base. And then they actually tried it. Apparently, they tried it with they worked it so that they could pick up people that way as well. And he said, it worked really, really well, except for there was one problem. There was no way that they, at least at the time, figured out how they could actually get the person back in to the aircraft. So the people that they tested it on, what they would do is they would pick them up and tow them up high enough that they could release themselves and then parachute back down to the ground. So he's like, it was like beta testing for something like that, and it just never really went anywhere. But I just thought that was interesting, and so Fulton surface-to-air recovery system, there'll be some information on that as well for you to check out. Who are the other groups that are heading towards Normandy to have this celebration, this 75th anniversary celebration flight? Well, I found out that there is another group. I knew about the DAX over Normandy. That's kind of how this all got started, and that's the route that we're flying. Last week I found out about actually PMDG, who makes some of the best aircraft, for flight sim. They have their own DC-3 that they're getting ready to fly, and those both could already be heading this direction. If not, it'll be pretty soon. But then there was another outfit that I just found out a bit about, just kind of accidentally, and I will put a link to those guys as well. They're an Everett-based group, and they are known as the Historic Flight Foundation, HFF, and their plane is actually going to have a Pan Am Airways Clipper Airways livery, and the story of the pilot is pretty cool. They were actually, these particular planes or this particular plane that they have refurbished, it served in the Pacific Theater, and it was not part of the D-Day thing, but they still have enjoyed restoring it and flying it around at different air shows, and so the pilot, who's actually the founder of this group, this Historic Flight Foundation's HFF group, he was in a crash, and he was, I don't remember what he was in one of the other planes they restored, and he was at an air show and crashed, and it was severe enough that he actually lost his left leg below the knee. And so, needless to say, that put this this flight in jeopardy. But as the story goes, he was just cleared to return to flight status a week ago, and has earned his way back into the pilot seat. I don't know if he'll be the chief pilot or the pilot monitoring. I don't know, but he's gonna fly. He's gonna, and actually they're in the air probably as we speak. They headed out from well, they're headed towards Oxford, Connecticut late this afternoon, United States time. So they may be already there or just arriving there. I don't know, but anyway, so one of the groups is, or one of the planes is already on the way, and it's they're estimating, and they're going to fly us the same route as what we're flying, but they're estimating 54 hours of flight time essentially, and so that's why you need a little bit of rest. Not only do the planes need to be refueled, but the pilots need to rest and refuel themselves. So should be a cool deal to see all those YouTube channels that have updates and things like that. And so this HFF is another group with their Pan Am livery, and Pan Am is one of the liveries that you can get for this DC3 also, which is kind of cool. So anyway, I thought you'd enjoy that story. By the way, have to say hello to Nick's Aviation. They're flying themselves over in the United States. Looks like he's got a flight or two, and they're getting pretty close to being done there. Safe landings there, Nick's. Thanks for checking in. Hope you had a great day. God bless you. So here we go. I don't know if these are the Scottish Highlands, but kind of some cool mountainy types. Low level fog can hit you really anywhere, make life miserable. We're hoping, praying for some clear skies. We're heading right through there, so it's looking okay. And yeah, we're under 200 miles now, 163 and a half. We're right on target now. Winds 242 at 1, so really no crosswind, so we should be able to hold this heading pretty well and get ourselves pretty close. About the only thing that you're not going to like in this flight, and it's just us being spoiled, I think, as simmers. I think we're so used to looking at our world like you see out in front of you right now, and it's getting more and more realistic every day. The airport that I have downloaded for Prestwick, it's a photoreal airport, but it has no 3D buildings, and so it's a little bit of a strange deal. It's so I for whatever reason, I've just not had much luck with airports the last 2 out of 3 legs. Now Reykjavik made up for it in a big way, but this one here, as we come into Prestwick, it's gonna look decent from the approach, but as you get to the ground, you're gonna just notice that it's nothing but flat, basically. And so, you know what, so be it. I kicked around, we do have the Orbrick sail. I kicked around getting a couple of the UK sceneries. There's a FTX Scotland, I think, or an EU Scotland and an EU England. There's also some new photoreal, and the name escapes me right now, but there's quite a bit of really cool scenery for England. but ended up actually getting a couple different things from Orbix, and so we'll have to do with just kind of what we have here, which if it didn't look as good as it did when I did my practice flights, I probably would have upgraded. I know I was kicking around one of the routes that we're going to fly, actually the next leg, it'll take us past the White Cliffs of Dover, and I was on the fence. I'm like, man, that would be pretty awesome. But then I saw a different YouTuber, Aviation Pro. I think you've seen some of his stuff, and he actually did a preview of that, and yeah, I was underwhelmed. I mean, it didn't really look all that fantastic. I mean, it looked a little better than what you're going to see with my scenery setup, but you know, essentially what I have is global, and I've got vector, and I've got trees as well. But you know, I've just got the basic Orbix mesh. Still looks good enough, and yeah, I needed some different things, so I just kind of had to budget accordingly. The other, I guess, scenery story that I can tell you it's also Orbix related is it was ironic, but the day that we left Narsarsuaq in Greenland, that actually became part of the Orbix small airport upgrade. And so if you remember, or if you don't, you can watch and see what I'm talking about. But the airport itself kind of had some problems with elevation, and the taxiway and the ramp were up a little higher than the rest of the scenery, and it looks kind of weird. But anyway, apparently that's all fixed now. I haven't messed around with it a whole lot, but that's pretty cool, because like I say, that Greenland scenery it's got a ton of potential. So I'm happy to see Orbix, and they're well known for that. I mean, they'll find these small developers, and if they like what they're doing, they'll incorporate them in to kind of their bigger conglomerate. All right, well, stop jabbering here for a little bit. Got a little hot drink going, and try to wake myself up for our final approach into Prestwick. Let's take a peek outside for a little while, though. Getting a bit hazy here and there, but Yeah, just some of those kind of low-level scattered fog banks, clouds. I don't know what you'd call them exactly, but we're on track. 140 miles. I think we're going to be in good shape. Did get a quick peek at the Prestwick ATIS, and I'll show you that right now. Looks like we're looking at winds from the north at 5 knots, so that's not too bad. They're suggesting runway 31, and hopping over here to the Navigraph charts. Yeah, so 3-1. Well, somebody has outdated data, but it looks like there's a 3-0 here that might not be bad. I could take runway 03 here. That's plenty of length for us, 6,250 feet. That's actually a little bit more into our wind than runway 30 is, but it's only 5 knots, so it really wouldn't be bad either way. Probably could bring it straight in on runway 12 if I wanted to, but yeah, we're not in any kind of emergency to get down quickly. If I follow my history with this plane, it'll take me a little longer to descend than I normally think it should, and I'll end up high on the approach. I've already had to go around once. Heading into Narsarsuaq, which was kind of embarrassing, but it was probably for the best because that was setting up to be a tailwind landing, and that was where the runway was elevated, and if you go off the runway you had a little bit of a cliff, and that would not have been a good way to come into Greenland. So but Reykjavik was better, even though my compasses were kind of doing what they're doing right now. You can see the white compass there, 150, but my other two compasses are saying 190. Heading mode that I'm trying to fly right now is 200, so these two, this is 200, so those are the two I'm going to go with. I am a little bit north of course again, so I might just bump that to 205. Going to keep my altitude here at least 3,500 so I can clear this low-lying stuff. You know, these things I think I'm well above, and we will get our bird on the ground here shortly. Now, by now, our friend Nick's Aviation going to be on the ground there in Port Columbus. How is the weather there, Connor? It doesn't look good on my radar. Really doesn't look good up and down the east coast of the United States. But that's not our problem. We have other things to concern ourselves with, and that is we're closing in on 100 miles to go to finish leg 4 of our blue Spruce Route. And it feels good to be in the United Kingdom. I'm sure the real-life World War II pilots were happy to see this landscape as well. Getting bounced around here quite a bit, but everything is looking good at this point. Temperatures and pressures all good. Did have to flip the fuel tanks over to reserve about an hour ago or so. Yeah, everything else is looking good, and we're even clipping along at 165 miles an hour, so making decent time. A little bit of a tailwind on top of that, so yeah, our ground speed is probably kicking butt, man. Over 180. See, this is just for being Orbic's global base and vector and Orbic's trees. This is pretty solid. I mean, it's not your typical default scenery. So through the small isles we go. I don't know a lot about the geography of Scotland, but lots of lochs and things like that. But I believe this area as a whole is called the Small Isles, and there'll be plenty of them, as well as just some different waterways, different lochs. As we make our way down to Prestwick, let's hop back outside and see what it looks like. Boy, we're really crabbing right now, it looks like. But again, Yeah, there we go. I was going to say, I don't think we really are because there's not that much wind. It's only a 5 knot wind right now. It is coming off our right-hand side, but I mean, we're in pretty good shape here, I think, overall. So again, if you're wanting to join us, normally we're every Saturday 0200. We have to miss out next Saturday because we have some family obligations, so we'll take a little break, but we'll be back the following Saturday. So you know, the 18th no stream, but the 25th we will stream, and then after that we'll take again just a little bit of a break until Wednesday, June the 5th, where we will fly from Duxford across the English Channel to EGPK and be a part of that celebration in our own way. Commemorative 75th anniversary of the D-Day flights, the D-Day landings. And of course D-Day is June 6th, but the reason why they're flying on the 5th is because from what I understand, that entire airspace is fairly well shut down because there's going to be all kinds of people coming in and out of there, so they're going to have a pretty tight security restriction on that airspace on the 6th. So everything that the D-Day crew, the DAX over Normandy and the PMDG guys, all those guys coming in there, they're going to be there on the 5th, and that's what our plans are going to be. Altimeter, by the way, 3053. We haven't adjusted that in a while here, so let's make sure we have that updated. 3053. Pretty high pressure. But yeah, that'll be good for us to sort of make sure we have our altitude correct. Bit of bouncing around again. Trying to get you a little better camera view here. To go on course, looking good. Pressures and temps all looking good. Fuel looking fantastic. Left and right auxiliaries still 100 gallons apiece. Wait, 100 tons? No, 100 gallons. Yeah, geez, I don't know. Yep. 130 or even more, 130 gallons a piece. Man, I'm tired. I'm not thinking straight. It's close to midnight my time. Now getting into some trickier stuff here. Might have to gain just a little bit of altitude or pick a route around some of these hills. We're getting fairly close here, 83 miles, but I am a little bit worried about the terrain in front of us. There's some of this stuff up over here. I don't know, we'd be in trouble. We'd have to go up, and fortunately I think we can, because the fog is not really in the, well, as soon as I say that, we start to pick a little bit up, but yeah, I think we'd have good enough visibility to do that. Here in just a bit we will see the last kind of big body of water before we head into Prescott, the Firth of Clyde, the Isle of Arran. Isle of Arran. I'm so tired, guys, I apologize. Hopefully you heard my dog barking and not me on that last one. Oh, we're gonna clear this. That's gonna be just fine. But hey, that looks decent out there. I mean, I know that Orbic stuff is probably going to add more detail, but I can live with that. Wind staying pretty true there at Prestwick, still out of the north at 5 knots. Really no danger of visibility issues as well. It's showing partly cloudy, but still just kind of overcast. Here and there, essentially. Which we have kind of been seeing as we're coming in. Just little pockets of fog, which I'm sure is common for this area. Common for those places that are near these large bodies of water. One of those shots that had the plane and the mountain and the moon all in the same shot. It looks pretty cool. I don't have that set in my static camera angles, but pretty cool nonetheless. 70 miles, probably about around 50 or so. I'll start to maybe slow down a little bit, assess the situation. I just have a habit of staying a little too high and a little too fast for a little too long. Almost always coming in higher than I should be, higher than the glide slope wants me to, and so let's see if I can do a little bit better today. You would think with each successive landing you would get better, but it's not always the case with me. Part of the issue, I think, is I jump in and out of several different planes all week long. I kind of rotate through, honestly. If I would stick with one, I'm sure that it would help things like landings, approaches and landings especially, but I don't know, there's lots of different kinds of flying I like to do, and so, you know, it's one of the fun things about being a simmer and not a real pilot. You can jump in and out of multiple aircrafts in different parts of the world a lot easier. Well, getting into some civilization pretty soon here. I don't know if those buildings over there. Yeah, some houses and stuff, looks like. There's a little airport. This would be a fun place to have beaver on some floats. Little things like that. Kind of cool. I think we're fairly well clear of the terrain now. I don't know how much more really hilly stuff we have to deal with. At least not something that's going to come up, 3,500 feet or more. But kind of a cool approach, I think. Kind of a scenic way to come into an area. And outside of a couple practice flights, I really haven't spent much time up here. I need to spend more. I keep saying that. I know you hear me say that a lot. There's areas I need to spend more time in. Darn day jobs, darn family. Yeah, you gotta have balance. Guy could get in trouble, spend all day long on a deal like this, and that's just not good. But it's fun to be able to spend a Saturday night flying a vintage World War II era aircraft from Iceland to Scotland to honor our military vets. So of course I'm saying I think we're clear of the terrain, and then I have stuff coming up on me here, but if I remember correctly, I believe our airport is before we get to the higher terrain there on the other side. Camera keeps jumping in and out, kind of weird. I think I'm mapped to a key here, and I'm thinking I'm doing one thing and I'm actually doing something else. But all right, Fabio checking back in. Thanks for hanging with us. Yeah, we're almost there. How was your approach into Miami? We were thinking at one point in time it looked like you might be doing some parallel approaches there, but how was it? It looked pretty cool. Did you win anything? How'd that go? Alright. Yeah, one more little body of water here and we're just about there. Again, pretty impressive just for kind of being the global base pack from Orbix. I understand that X-Plane had something similar released here recently. I saw the Q8 pilot did a review, and that looked pretty cool. I do have an urge to get X-Plane going as well. I'd like to have both. I don't have the computer for both right now. In fact, every time I download a new aircraft or a new scenery, I cringe because I know I'm just getting closer to capacity on memory, as well as just what my whatever 9-year-old computer can handle. But it's kind of like that old 57 Chevy, man. I've got it tweaked and tuned, and I've got the duct tape in just the right spot, and it runs pretty good right now. But I would like at some point, wouldn't we all, I guess, to have a little bit nicer computer that had both P3D and X-Plane, because I just think there's some cool things that X-Plane has to offer that I haven't had a chance to mess around with. Alright, well folks, we've got a little bit of a decision to make here, because I don't believe are high enough to get over this hill. So we could shoot one of these gaps to the left or to the right, because we are online with our airport right now, and so that means it's basically right over the top of this hill in about 40 miles. Now I do know, the wind now is just about calm. It's 360 at 3 knots. So really we have the pick of runways. We could basically come, whatever runway straight in, we could come in there. We could technically runway 03 would be probably the one that would be most into the wind. That would require us to, we're basically going to be coming in opposite that, coming in on the downwind. So if we had to veer one way or the other, it wouldn't be the end of the road. Well, maybe we're going to be okay. Get a little closer here, and seeing that we have pretty good clearance. Not great, but pretty good right there. I just don't want to gain a whole lot of altitude here with only 37 miles to go, just because of my history of being above the glide slope. I tell you what, here's what we're gonna do. Let's have a little bit of fun. Let's take her through this little valley. Even though I think I think we're well clear of the terrain. We're going to go ahead and fly a little bit. I've been sitting for 4 hours. See if I can wake my rest of my body up here, get prepared for our approach. And just kind of take this gentle left, swing around, and we should start to see the city of Prestwick coming into view just on the other side here. We may do something similar to what we did at Reykjavik. We might just fly midfield over the airport, get a sense of what's going on, and then decide which runway we want to use. We had a hard time in Reykjavik because we thought we were lined up for I think it was runway 1, and but our compass was, again, it was not really giving us consistent information. So I'm a little bit leery that we may have the same problem here. So I'm going to go ahead and start slowing down. We'll start losing a little bit of altitude. The elevation is somewhere around 50 feet, 65 feet of elevation, so we can afford to lose a little bit here in the last 30 miles or so. Maybe I've got one more hill to get over. It is possible. I've also drifted north, of course, so I'm going to come down here because I know that the town and the airport itself is right on the western coastline of this little loch here. Oh, and lucky us, we've got some fog. That's fun. Real quick, before landing, let's see. Yeah, we'll go mixture auto rich. Go propellers high RPM. Again, I can't do this manually, so I will put the cowl flaps on trail. We're going to turn the fuel pumps on. We are going to make sure the landing lights are on. We are going to make sure our cabin signs are on. We'll set our flaps when we get a little closer. Okay, we reconnected. If we paused, my apologies. That was an OBS deal. If you're just joining us, we're on final here for Prestwick in Scotland. It's the conclusion of the 4th leg of our Blue Spruce Route, the World War II era North Atlantic route from North America to England. We are 24 miles from our airport. We're currently worried about fog. We may have to do some flying around here until this burns off. We are lucky that we don't have a whole lot of weather to contend with right now. Still just 3 knots. But we are VFR, and if we had to, we can land IFR, ILS, excuse me, but I don't know. I haven't briefed this approach to know if they even have a runway with ILS available. Looking right now, yeah, we have ILS, I guess, runway 1, 2 if we need it. But maybe we're going to be okay. We're kind of getting past this little bit of fog. And we'll just keep our eye out because Prestwick is somewhere here, kind of on this coastline. Haven't flown by it yet, have we? No, we haven't. We're dropping our altitude here, coming down 2,000 feet. We are below flap speed, so I'm going to go ahead and put a notch of flaps 1/4. $20 miles to go. Still no visual, but I know it's out there somewhere. I guess it could be around the corner here too. I shouldn't get too carried away. We'll get her down to oops, now we're climbing. We could keep it at about 1,500 feet, I think, and be okay for now. I've only been in here a couple of times, but I do know that it's on the coastline. Yeah, now we've slid. Now we're well, I guess, west of, right of course, so that probably is telling me that I've got to go around the corner here. Pretty sure there would be some noise abatement procedures telling me to stay outside over the water, so I'll try to do that. Navigraph does not have, for Prestwick, any kind of noise abatement procedures, but would make sense that that's what you would do here. Stay away from the houses, especially in an airplane that would make this much noise. This is a noisy bird. Alright, we'll swing around here. We'll take a look and see what's up this coastline. We have plenty of fuel. We can afford to look around just a little bit. That's not an issue. If we did run into some weather, some fog, we could, again, we could hang out for a little while. We do have an alternate planned if we need to, but it's not looking too bad, honestly. I think we're going to be okay if we can find the airfield. We're going to stay here at about 1,500. Might be getting just a hair slow. About 120 would be good, I think. Maybe went full RPMs just a little too soon. I'm going to bring those back so we don't get too warm. It would not be fun to have an engine failure right now. I don't think I could land it on that golf course. Yeah, 15 miles. Not seeing much yet. I am seeing some more fog though. Ooh, and I'm climbing a little bit, so let's trim down. Oh, there's a little bit of a pause, making me kind of nervous. This would be a bad time to have a sim crash. Okay, we can breathe easy. We're back. Maybe that was a quick pause while the scenery loads. I know sometimes that happens with my bigger airports as I approach That's part of this machine showing its age. My computer, that is. It takes a second to load that stuff up. We're getting closer, so I know we're on the right track. And again, I know it's on the coastline here. Yeah, we've gained some altitude and it's put us in the soup a little bit here, so trying to descend maybe down around 1,000 would be good. You know, we're under 10 miles, so we could probably start thinking about another notch of flaps. I would just feel much better if I could see my airfield. Where are you, Prestwick? Alright, we're at 1,000. I don't want to go any lower than that because then it becomes that much tougher to see where you're going. Looking. I know you're here somewhere. And that's the problem with the compasses kind of deviating a little bit. It throws you off some. I don't know. I think I maybe see. I think I see some runway lights up there. Alright. Maybe. Getting a little slow again. Let's not lose too much airspeed just yet. Yeah, those look like runway lights, don't they? 5 miles in the distance. I would say so. Since our wind is super light, only 3 knots, I think what we're going to do is just make straight in for what I believe would be runway 21. 6,250-foot runway. We're on the glide slope for something. Now we're a little high. Alright, so let's put in a second notch of flaps. Getting our gear horn warning. Start our descent into runway 21. 2 of my 3 compasses tell me this is supposed to be runway 21. We will see. Alright, now go high RPMs. And yep, that definitely looks like Prestwick. Looks pretty good scenery wise, but everything's flat. When you overfly this, if I were to overfly it, that's what you would notice. It looks pretty photoreal, but as you can see, there's just not a lot of 3D buildings on the airport itself, on the airport grounds. Okay. In we go. Once again, we're above the glide slope. We're going to go flaps 3/4. Oh, we went through the localizer a little bit here. Yeah, I know we're not tuning a localizer, but we missed lining it up. Okay, back on the glide slope. Flaps full. Speed is looking pretty good. We are crabbing a little bit. See what the runway markings tell us here, if they tell us anything. Kind of old and worn here. Okay. Pull her back. And we are down. On the ground. A big old runway here. Old and weathered. And if I'm not mistaken, the buildings, you know, there's a couple different choices here. We're going to go ahead and exit to the right. Unlock our tail wheel and clean the flaps up. And thank everybody again for joining us. It was leg 4. It was a fun leg. It was a quick leg. If the 3-hour oceanic leg can be quick, it was a nice weather day with the tailwind and not a lot of precipitation, so things went really smoothly. And except for us ending up a little bit north of course, you know, I think it all went fairly well. So thanks for joining us again. One final reminder: we will not stream next Saturday. We will be back the following Saturday at 0200 Zulu. So nothing on the 18th, but we'll be back on the 25th. We'll be flying from Prestwick down to Duxford, and then we will make our preparations for our final leg, which will take us to Cape Carpacay across the English Channel, and that'll be on the 5th of June, also at 0200 Zulu. So if you'd like to join us, you're welcome. You're invited, I should say. Please make plans, tell your friends. That's enough of that. And we'd love to see you. Until then, I'd like everybody to just have a fantastic evening and take care. God bless.